And we can now talk about the experience of South America.
Thank you very much indeed for two wonderful presentations, and thank you, Richard, for inviting me back this year. It's terrific to see so many people here who were here last year, and being an old marketing person myself, there's nothing that we in marketing love more than repeat customers. So I'm absolutely delighted to see so many of you back again to support this very, very important and special event. And congratulations to Richard on his commitment to Africa and to his team, and also to President Bongo for his vision in hosting this very, very significant event. Now, time is short, so what we have suggested to our presidents from Latin America is that in turn, they make a couple of remarks each about learnings from the experience of economic and political development in Latin America that may be of interest and relevance to those in the audience and to our presidents from Africa. So I'd like to, first of all, invite President Fox to lead us off. And after the three Latin American presidents have made their remarks, I'll then ask President KAGAME and President Bongo to respond to the suggestions and ideas presented. President Fox, please.
President Bongo, President KAGAME, Professor John, colleagues, presidents from Latin America, wonderful audience of leaders. Thank you for this opportunity to be here on this sophisticated dialogue of vision. 21st century is the century of Africa. It is Africa to be one of the engines to mobilize world economy. Now the usual leaders are tired and not pulling the wagon at the speed that is needed, and I'm referring to European Union and United States. New engines are coming to take over the responsibility. And I don't have any doubt Africa is one of them. Only those who know where they are going get there. Only those who build teams are successful. Only those who have purpose perform effectively. Yes, we need a roadmap. And this is a convocation from President Bongo to develop that roadmap. Up to now, Africa has struggled with many problems. But today, the vision is clear. Although yet micro efforts are the dominant factor, and we need macro efficiency, macro guidance. The first concept I want to subscribe is the African Union. Each individual nation by itself does not have today, even the most powerful, enough capacities to be successful. So team working, macro integrating is a must. And this is the vision of the leaders in Africa. I have had the opportunity to be with several of them, and I know this roadmap is being built. Education, health, human talent is a needed ingredient. There's only one way to change a nation, in one generation, and it is through education. So this plan is now on the move. Finally, we'll just describe that a united Africa will have the capacity to attract resources from all over the world. These resources mostly will come through those more developed nations, through all those that are on geographic strategic decisions. But everything that comes must be integrated to the whole of the continent, to use all of its resources. And planning and having this type of vision will attract those resources, will allocate those resources. There's many of those resources ready to come to this great continent. One, and most important, is technology. Today, fortunately, we all have access to the cloud that accumulates human knowledge of all centuries, of all millennia, in an orderly way. Now at hand's reach, with a mobile, we have access to that accumulated knowledge. So each one of us today has the power to develop himself first, then develop his community, his nation, and this continent. Let's all then work together with Africa and meet that dream that these two presidents here have expressed so clearly. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's next turn to President Alejandro Toledo of Peru.
First of all, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you in the name of my wife, my two close friends, colleagues, to allow us to come to a promising continent, Africa. Secondly, when I was a professor at Harvard, I lost my mind and made a jump from academia to politics, but nobody's perfect. Third, as the three presidents who have preceded me have said, it is vital to have a vision. It's not sufficient to be a president. We have to know where do we want to go as a continent, as a country. We have in Latin America made several mistakes. We have learned our lessons. We would like to share with you because the world has shrunk. So let me point out first, as a brothers and sisters, to share my experience not only as an academician, not only as a former functionary of the World Bank, as a professor of Harvard, but as an Indian from the Andes of Peru. It is important to build the infrastructure of human capital. I know that that's not politically very profitable because that investment in human capital, by definition, is a medium and long-term return. The interrelationship between early malnutrition, healthcare, and education is a vital structure to build and to prevent each single life that is lost is too many. Without a strong infrastructure of human capital, we cannot walk forward to realize our vision. The empirical evidence in the world are clear. Japan, after the Second World War, was destroyed. And they don't have any natural resources. 120 million Japanese and a lot of water, no natural resources. Korea, after 1960, were cheap labor for Japanese. Israel had no natural resources, and they were built. My second thought that I want to share with you is that in order to have a promising continent, you have to eliminate poverty, reduce inequality, and work for social inclusion. There is no differences in the color of our skin. There is no difference between men and women. I have learned that investing in women, the returns are much higher than investing in men. Moreover, I don't know any greatest economists and administrators. You don't have to go to Harvard, to Stanford, to Wharton. The best administrator of scarcity are women. Three, take care, my friends, my brothers, take care of the youth. The youth, those that you had this morning, a decent job, a sense of hope for life. Don't let them fall in delinquency or all the paths. Let's not truncate their dreams. And finally, I'm an economist, but nobody's perfect. Let me tell you, I received my economy, my friend knows, in recession. And I had to bring it. And I was the first indigenous president democratically elected in 500 years. And so there were a lot of expectations over my shoulders. And I was sentenced not to fail. So I had to rebuild the economy. And you have to grow. And in order to fight poverty, inequality, and exclusion, you need to grow. Because you cannot redistribute poverty. In order to grow, you need to build trust for entrepreneurs to invest. Trust. Institutions that are accountable. I don't know anything more coward in the world than a dollar or a Chinese currency or a real from Bolivia. They're going to go there where there is trust, where the risk is low. So you need to build institutions to attract capital investment in order to grow. And when you grow, you have to redistribute it, beginning with the poorest of the poorest. If this is our roadmap, now that technology has shrunk the world, you, my brothers of this promising continent of Africa, you can have our arms, our experience, and our hearts to share with you. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know President Toledo has a very successful Facebook page, and I think he's just added significantly to the number of Facebook fans based on his remarks. Well done. Now, it's a tough act to follow for President Jorge QUIROGA from Bolivia, but please say a few words to us.
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you, President BONGO ONDIMBA, for your hospitality. It's a pleasure to be in your country. Thank you, President KAGAME, for your inspiring leadership, landlocked, small country, under extremely difficult civil strife circumstances, and the transformation you've exercised deserves nothing but admiration for what you've done. I come from Bolivia, South America, and I'm happy to be here in Africa. Thank you, Richard, because I guarantee you, that to see Africans and Latin Americans working together for better results normally only happens in the Premier League or La Liga in Spain, not typically in public policy. And I'm probably the one that's come from the furthest, or at least the highest. My airport, La Paz, is 4,000 meters. I told the president, big advantage for soccer. Messi has never scored a goal in La Paz yet, but you're welcome to come. And it's kind of a shame that I have to come north through Miami, Paris, and then back down when we're close to the equator, but that shows the lack of integration between Africa and Latin America. I'd like to leave you with a couple of ideas of things that we can learn from each other or do better. Number one, Latin America 14, 15 years ago was a basket case, trying to build democracy, devaluations galore, hyperinflation's rampant, debt crisis right and left. Like the president was telling us at lunch, we were offered this menu that said this is how you get things, food to survive, but the last page was said deal with the IMF, structural adjustment, World Bank loans, and they were telling us what to do with recipes that were imported from other places that were not really the answers. Lo and behold, here we are. Latin America has 3 seats at the G20, and we can tell European, US, and Japan, the former G7 countries, Latin America grows twice as fast as you do, with half the debt as percent of GDP, with a quarter of the fiscal deficit as percent of GDP than developed large countries, and having reduced poverty from 50 to 30% in the course of a decade. It's not great, but it clearly is making progress. And I think Africa can also show indicators like that. The financial crisis of 2008 showed us in Latin America something that I do not yet know about the African map, Mr. President. The financial crisis in Latin America showed us that from the Panama Canal on south, we're all Chinese. For a simple reason, in South America, we all sell or export energy, agricultural products, or mining products. And the Chinese voracious appetite for soybeans, tin, iron ore, copper, oil, coal, gas, has meant a bonanza for South America selling commodities. Central America and the Caribbean, on the other hand, have to import most of their energy and food. So in Africa, I imagine you have countries, if you export commodity, long live the Chinese, welcome them. If you have to import them, and fuel and food are more expensive, it brings about a lot of political difficulties. And I think the trick or the key for our regions is how to figure out, going forward, how to leverage the high commodity prices from China and how to find a niche for manufactured goods in the US and Europe. And we both had, Africa and Latin America, countries with preferential trade access to Europe or to the US, AGOA in your case, ATPDA for the Andean countries, CAFTA for the Central American countries, preferential trade access for goods in the US and Europe. So the key is, as the world more and more shifts to cheap energy in North America that will attract lots of manufacturing, expensive China labor costs, how do you find yourself in a place where you can still sell commodities to China and still have access to the large markets with lower cost manufactured goods? And I think there's things to be learned and experiences to be shared. The second point on this is, how do you develop the internal integration, the infrastructure, the gas lines, the electric grids inside the continents. We're very good about setting up infrastructure to export to other countries, not very good at linking to each other. We always talk about trade, common currencies, but we never see the basic veins that we have to hook up in terms of sharing energy and sharing electric grids. How many pipelines do you have inside of Africa? How many electric lines do you have inside of Africa? Taking energy from the haves to the have-nots to be able to leverage that on a continental basis. And one thing we learned in Latin America is what Alejandro's mentioned. You got to invest to the people, in the people. Whether it's Oportunidades in Mexico, Bolsa Familia in Brazil, or lots of programs, conditional cash transfers from a bonanza of commodities given directly to the people in their pockets, preferably women. The men, we tend to drink it. The women are the best doctors, the best teachers, the best economists in the world. And paying cash to mothers to have the children go to school and stay vaccinated is proven to be very effective in many Latin American countries. And the last point, and I'll close with this, is the need to work with internal integration. In South America, we preach a lot about that. We don't really practice it that much. The best South American integration takes place in Barcelona with Messi, Neymar, Alves, Mascherano. They work together pretty well, but not so much when it comes to trade and integration inside of our countries. But clearly, it's important to do that. Imagine if China was 50 different regions and had to each work on its way. Imagine if the US had 50 different policies. So I think we need the economies of scale of integration that allows us to work together. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult to move ahead. I live in La Paz, a city ensconced in the middle of mountains. I like to go climb them. If you want to see the sunrise, you have to go climb a mountain and reach the top. And you learn that to climb, you need legs, lungs, and a rope. You need good policies, know where you're going, but you also need a rope to tie you to your fellow travelers. Otherwise, you do not make the summit. I suggest what President Fox said is very important. It is key to develop cohesion and integration in Africa, so then you can together move towards the top of the summit and see the beginning of a brand new day for this beautiful Africa. Thank you.
So we have around about 5 minutes left for the panel, which is way too short. What I would like to do is ask President KAGAME and then President BONGO to each respond your reactions to the comments from the three presidents. And is there one question that you would like to ask them that perhaps their experience could be valuable for you?
Well, thank you. I must thank the panelists that joined us here on this stage, first of all, because they have said almost everything I would have wished to hear from them, which is very helpful. I just want to ask one question, which I know may be difficult for them as it has been for us, and every time we ask this question. You see, they gave very clear, very informed, points and views about what has been done or what needs to be done and so on and so forth. But in my part of the world, whether it is Rwanda particularly or Africa generally, we have been learning these lessons. We've met very intelligent people who have expressed very clearly what should be done, what needs to be done to get certain results, and so on and so forth. What is it that we can learn from the leaders here and from Latin America's experience about how we can accelerate implementation? Because at the end of the day, it's not how much you know, as well as it is how much you do based on what you know, so that you get results that are very important. That's the question I wanted to ask.
Okay. Would any of the three of you
Maybe
like to...
I could
okay,
just
President
jump in.
BONGO, your supplement.
And, first of all, gentlemen, Mr. President, and I'd like on the behalf of the Gabonese people to thank you very much, to have come all the way from your country to participate with us. Please. applause for this president. It's always interesting to listen to, colleagues or former colleagues, people that have been on that road before. Because you were faced with all the problems, troubles that we are now facing. And then talking with you is very important because, we get what is very important that you do not learn in school, which is experience, wisdom. And this is what we are trying to get from you. Jumping in after Paul, I would say that implementation is very important, as I highlighted. And I would add to that on the question that what, for you, has been the priority of the priorities?
So accelerated implementation and governance. Who would like to start? Vicente, President Fox, thank you.
I have 3 ideas to share very quickly. Number 1, the quicker you integrate and work together the economies of Africa, the best results are going to be attained. Example, case of Mexico integrating to NAFTA, to the North American Trade Agreement. Everybody was afraid to work together, to partner with the giant, with the almighty, powerful economy of the United States. So a lot of people in Mexico rejected the agreement, especially because of agriculture, food production, agro-industry. Let me tell you, today, Mexico exports, provides United States with up to 75% of vegetables and fruits that nation consumes, those 300 million consumers in the United States. And the trade balance on the basic economy is highly favorable to Mexico. So once you have a challenge, you can meet that challenge by having total confidence that you can do it. Number 2, there are shortcuts to development. Fortunately, those of us who come behind, which are not yet developed, have the opportunity to learn from others and have the opportunity to go through these shortcuts. 50 years ago in India, a visionary man decided to create the IIT, the Indian Institute of Technology, copying MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, 50 years ago. Today, India exports $168 billion worth of information technologies. And this miracle happened because of that vision. That can be done here. When you have the same hour zone with Europe, those services can be provided from here. No need of ships, trucks, or containers. Just the fiber optics way to send information technologies to the whole of Europe.
Humble advice. Yes, invest in extractive industries, mining, gold, silver, copper, whatever natural resources you have. But make it as a strategy. Don't do that for the rest of your life, or all of us, we're going to be dead. Diversify the composition of your economic growth. Get into agro-industry, which is labor-intensive, it generates jobs, enable you to have food. Diversify your sources of investment. Diversify your markets. Yes, invite everyone to come to invest in your country. That be you and united Africa, the ones who set the rules of the game. You know, technology has a great advantage. We can be together over here, and we can be talking and identifying our own challenges, our own problems, and we can share our experience. And I'm sure you have a lot to teach us. However, why can't we have a summit of Africans and Latin Americans in Africa or in Latin America and share presidents who are in office and former presidents? Don't just look at Europe, the United States, or China. Ask them to come to invest, yes. My point is, let's take a look at your own continent to be unified. Because together, you can score many goals. Alone, you might not score not even one. United. Now I'm saying that, and I agree with my friend QUIROGA. We have said a lot of that, but we didn't practice. Now we are looking to each other. And the trade and investment in Latin America has increased enormously. I received my economy in recession, and I left it in 7.5% growing, and it's growing for 14 years consecutively, between 6 and 9%. In democracy. My final point. Democracy is not just a day of an election. It's not sufficient to be elected democratically. It's more important to govern democratically. Richard, this New York Forum on Africa could be the beginning of something very promising for our both continents. The complementarities of our resources and our experience can take us a long way. Now, the planes are making every time shorter the distance. My final point, my friends, let's not forget the poor who might lose hope. Democracy does not have a nationality, just as much human rights does not have a skin color. God bless this promising continent.
Thank you, John. To President KAGAME, I think implementation requires something that many times sounds like an insult: bureaucracies, civil service, competent public sector employees that have government jobs based on their qualifications, their academic background, and not based on who they're related to or how many friends and cronies they have in the government. If you think of government as an airline can change ownership and management. But just because you have a new president or a new minister, you don't change the pilots. Would you get on an airplane where every time they change the owner, who's going to fly the plane now? Oh, the cousin of the new manager. Would you get on that plane? So yes, you can change policies, but you have to have the best people that you can find in the country doing politics. Comes from polikos, make city, make country. It's a very noble profession. And to have the best people working in that is the best way to assure implementation. President, you asked about priorities. I think it's, today, if I would say 2 or 3 things, one is no matter how good your image is, make sure you provide security. It's amazing how in today's world you hear something happens in Nigeria or Ebola is going somewhere and you're coming to Africa and they ask you, are you really going there? Watch out, because ignorance travels a lot faster than facts. So security is very important to bring investment, because you will always get the cowboy investment. Energy and mining, they always come. And they always buy their own security. If you want banks, insurance, services, trade, you got to have basic level of security provided. And in terms of image, and I'll close with this, if you want to project a different image, you have several icons here in Africa. Where's Mutombo? Is he here? Oh, you don't need to stand up. But I think to market the icons that you have, this is a remarkable case. If we had, for every 100 Latin American soccer superstars, if we had one not stay in Europe and enjoy the money, but come back to where you came from your country of origin, and help develop the young people, and use your celebrity, not to enjoy it for the rest of your life, but to use it as an example, like Mutombo does, we have a much better Africa and a much better Latin America. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as I think you will say many times during the course of this fantastic event, we are unfortunately out of time. We are not able to spend another half hour on this conversation, which would have been fabulous. I just want to underscore one thing which I heard several times early in the panel. As an educator, it heartens me frequently to hear education mentioned as very vital to economic development. But I want to underscore that you cannot have education of children without health of children. And you have to have the health and the education hand in hand as you develop the social and human capital to fuel economic development. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our 5 presidents and wish them all well. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. I think we can go this way. I would now like to invite Richard back on the stage to continue our program.